Imagine all the people.
This man has no idea what he's gotten himself into, while Maduro sings Imagine to an applauding audience. Something changed on November 24th, 2025. Officially, a designation came into effect. It's just 3 letters, but they turned Maduro into what he feared the most. And when you see what those 3 letters allow the United States to do, you'll understand why Maduro is begging to talk to Trump.
Peace, peace, peace.
The 3 letters are Foreign Terrorist Organization, which stands for Foreign Terrorist Organization. On November 16th, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the Los Soles cartel would be designated as a foreign terrorist organization, and according to the United States State Department, the leader of this cartel is Nicolas Maduro. Now, you might be thinking, but wait, isn't Maduro the president of Venezuela? How can he be the leader of a terrorist cartel? That's exactly the move. The United States stopped recognizing Maduro as the legitimate president. For the American government, he doesn't rule Venezuela. He runs a criminal organization that controls the country and traffics drugs. He supports other terrorist groups, such as the Aragua Train and the Sinaloa cartel, and uses violence as a political tool. And when you classify someone as a terrorist leader instead of a head of state, the rules change completely. Look, when you are the president of a country, even if the United States doesn't like you, there are limits, there are diplomatic protocols, there are international laws. You can't just attack a head of state without huge political consequences. But when you're classified as the leader of a terrorist organization, those limits disappear. First, because any person or company that provides material support to Maduro commits a federal crime in the United States. This includes doing business with him, transferring money, providing equipment. Even humanitarian aid can be considered material support if it goes through the wrong hands. Secondly, because all of Maduro's assets in American territory or in banks that operate with the American financial system are immediately frozen. And finally, because Maduro and anyone associated with the Los Soles cartel are prohibited from entering the United States. And if they are there, they can be deported or arrested. But most importantly, what changes the whole game is this. The Foreign Terrorist Organization designation gives the President of the United States the authority to use military force against the terrorist organization. Without needing to ask Congress for permission, Trump can order attacks against cartel assets in Venezuela. And since Maduro is the leader of the cartel, according to this designation, everything that belongs to the Venezuelan government can be considered a cartel asset. I'm talking about military bases, ports, airports, oil refineries, government buildings, even the presidential residence. Trump said this explicitly on Sunday, November 17th. When asked if the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation would allow attacks inside Venezuela, he replied, "We can attack Maduro's assets and infrastructure. Yes."
The United States government, because it has targets such as military assets or infrastructure inside Venezuela,
allows us to do this, but he didn't say we would do it. We may have some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how this unfolds. They would like to talk.
And this is where the story gets interesting. Because if you look at Maduro's behavior over the last 2 weeks, it's obvious that he got the message.
No crazy war. It's not a 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 crazy war.
On November 18th, 3 days after Rubio's announcement, Maduro went on Venezuelan state television with a message in English. Looking straight at the camera, he said, "Yes, peace, yes, peace." He asked for peace. He spent months calling Trump an imperialist and claimed Venezuela would resist to the death.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Because the response could be the beginning and the end of the North American Empire. Don't you dare.
Let those who are quiet remain quiet.
I'm a man of peace.
He mobilized 200,000 troops, promising armed struggle. Suddenly, he wants to talk. Fear? For sure. But it wasn't just that. On November 15th, during a rally in Miranda, Maduro did something bizarre right there, in front of a large audience. He sang Imagine by John Lennon, the most famous pacifist song in the world. Imagine all the people living life in peace. The audience applauded. The government released the video. Maduro portrayed himself as a man of peace. But while he was singing John Lennon, 15,000 American soldiers were surrounding Venezuela. The United States ship Gerald R. Ford, the largest and most lethal aircraft carrier in the world, was positioned 500 kilometers off the Venezuelan coast. F-35 fighters were operating in Puerto Rico. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers were patrolling the Caribbean, the largest American military mobilization in the region since the invasion of Panama in 1989. And Maduro knew it. He knew that the foreign terrorist organization Designation was coming, and he knew what that meant. That's why he changed his speech from "We will resist until the end" to "Imagine all the people sharing all the world." But there's more, much more. In early November, even before the official announcement of the foreign terrorist organization Designation, Maduro launched an app called VenApp. The app had already existed since 2022, and it was used to report problems with public services, lack of water, power outages, and things like that. But in November 2025, it was redesigned. Now, VenApp is used to report suspicious activities and suspicious people. Maduro asked the military to supervise the app and asked the Venezuelan people to report everything they hear, everything they read. It's a mass surveillance system, a whistleblowing app. The idea is clear. Maduro is afraid that the Americans will try to overthrow him from within. He's afraid of a coup. He's afraid that his own generals will turn against him when the pressure increases. That's why he made the population spies and created a climate of paranoia. And it works. Human rights groups like Amnesty International have warned that the app can be used to persecute political opponents, arbitrarily arrest people, and silence critics. But the most revealing thing of all wasn't what Maduro did, it was what Colombia did. On November 19th, Bloomberg reported that the Colombian government is negotiating a deal to remove Maduro from power. Yes, Colombia, the country that was Maduro's closest ally in the region. The Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, who is left-wing, who was a guerrilla, who has always defended socialist regimes in Latin America, is negotiating Maduro's departure. The proposal is simple. Maduro resigns, a transitional government takes over, and new elections are called. And, in exchange, Maduro doesn't go to prison, he gets amnesty. Colombia favors this solution because the alternative, the United States, is worse. Invading Venezuela. And if that happens, millions of refugees will cross the border into Colombia. Colombia's economy will collapse, leading to an unwanted war. Petro is urging Maduro to step down peacefully. And the fact that even Colombia has given up on him shows how big the problem is. Now, the question you're probably asking yourself is, okay, the United States can attack, but will they attack? And the answer is, it depends. Let's look at the numbers. The United States has 15,000 soldiers in the region. It seems like a lot, but it's not enough for a large-scale invasion. When the Americans invaded Panama in 1989, they used 27,000 troops. And Panama is tiny compared to Venezuela. When they occupied Haiti in 1994, they used 25,000 troops. Venezuela has 125,000 soldiers in the regular army, plus 8 million militiamen, according to Maduro. That number is probably inflated, but even if it's half of that, it's still a huge army. So, the United States doesn't have enough troops to invade, but they don't need to invade. They can carry out surgical strikes, they can destroy the Venezuelan Air Force, they can bomb military bases, they can block ports and prevent oil exports. Most importantly, they can remove Maduro. Because, with the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation, Maduro becomes a legitimate target, just like Osama bin Laden, al-Baghdadi, Soleimani were. And where are those three today? Trump can order a special forces operation to capture or kill Maduro and doesn't need to ask anyone for permission. The United States already has a $50 million reward for the capture of Maduro and $25 million for Diosdado Cabello, the Venezuelan interior minister and alleged military leader of the Los Soles cartel. In other words, they don't need to invade Venezuela to change the regime, they can simply take Maduro off the board. But there's a problem. Venezuela won't be easy. Venezuela has the most sophisticated air defense system in Latin America. They have S-300 VM missiles of Russian origin. These missiles can shoot down planes from 250 kilometers away. They form a shield over Caracas and the Venezuelan coast. The Americans would have to use F-35 fighters, which are invisible to radar, to penetrate this system. And even then, it would be risky. Besides, Russia is helping. Russian technicians reactivated the Venezuelan defense systems. Russia sent new missiles, and there are reports that Russian military contractors, former members of the Wagner Group, are in Venezuela protecting high-value targets. Russia sees Venezuela as leverage against the United States. Just as the Americans support Ukraine against Russia, the Russians support Venezuela against the Americans. It's a proxy war, and China is also involved. China is Venezuela's biggest creditor. Beijing lends billions of dollars to Caracas in exchange for oil. If Maduro falls, China loses money. That's why China asked the United States to respect Venezuelan sovereignty. That's why China is providing economic support to keep Maduro in power. So, yes, the United States may attack, but it won't be a simple operation. And that brings us to the last question. Why now? Why is this escalation happening right now? The answer has three parts. First, because of Trump's re-election. Trump has always wanted to remove Maduro from power. He tried during his first presidency between 2017 and 2021, but he didn't succeed. Now, he's back and wants to finish the job. Second, the change at the Pentagon. On September 5, 2025, Trump signed an executive order changing the name of the Department of Defense back to the Department of War. This isn't just symbolic, it's a doctrinal change. The Department of Defense implies a reactive stance. You defend, you protect, you maintain order. But the Department of War, well, it implies an offensive stance. You attack, you conquer, you change the rules. And Pete Ragseth, the Secretary of War, made that clear when he said that the era of the Department of Defense is over. He said that the United States will fight to win, not just to avoid losing. He said that the focus is on maximum lethality, not lukewarm legality. That's the mentality guiding Operation Southern Spear. As you can see, this new designation placed on Maduro removes all the legal barriers that prevented the United States from attacking Venezuela. Now, Trump can order attacks against Venezuela, and he doesn't need to ask anyone for permission. And Maduro knows that. That's why he completely changed his speech. That's why he sings John Lennon. That's why he asks for peace. That's why even Colombia is trying to negotiate his exit from power before it's too late. And the big question now isn't if the United States will act, it's when and how, because the net is closing in and the pieces are in place. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you think Trump will really attack Venezuela, or is this just pressure to force Maduro out? Leave it here in the comments. And if you found this video interesting, share it with someone who needs to understand what's happening in the Caribbean. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos about this crisis. Thanks, and see you next time.